Tim Perreira. Welcome to Recovery Diaries in Depth. It is so lovely to be here and share this space and time with you.
I'm honored. I'm happy to be on. I'm thankful that this motel I'm staying in Elkhart, Kansas, has good enough Wi-Fi to be able to make it happen. You never know, and
I'm
so
thankful
another
for that
blessing.
too. How's the bed?
It's
That's always
okay.
dicey.
Yeah, it's okay. The last, 4 of the last 7 nights I've slept on the ground, camping. So it's, one small thing that I have come to really appreciate is, and this may be slightly TMI, but we're here for it, is if I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it's much easier to, especially when I'm sore after walking all those miles every day, it's much easier to turn and just get out of bed than it is to stand up from the ground from a full squat. It may seem very minor, but 5 days of walking 25 miles, your body gets pretty sore. And so there have been times where I just refused to go to the bathroom so I could stay laying down, even if it meant I didn't get to go back to sleep.
So I would argue that there's nothing minor that you're experiencing as you are walking across America for men's mental health and suicide prevention. That
Yeah.
everything from the frozen burritos or hot pockets or whatever they are that you're eating
Yeah.
to how and when and you're going to the bathroom and its impact on your body, everything is a big deal,
Yeah.
um, and for your body, for your mind. And so let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one thing that comes to mind with that, just as you were talking about how nothing's minor. There have been so many challenges on this walk, which I'll talk about why I'm even out here. But the phrase that keeps coming up for me on the walk, for any challenge, big or small, is just this too. This too is part of it. Not just the sexy, glamorous pictures I take, welcome to Kansas sign at the big milestones, but also the, the pebbles in the shoe, the difficulty finding a place to sleep, the not wanting to get up out of the tent and go to the bathroom because it's windy and cold, and having to find, food like frozen hot pockets. Not my first choice, but in some of these places, that's, believe it or not, is kind of the best option. So, but this too, it's all part of it. And as much as my mind wants to resist some of that stuff and think, no, it shouldn't be this way, I'm reminded that no, this actually is just as much as part of it as the beautiful sunrise and the birds chirping and the herd of elk crossing in front of me on the road. And it's been such an amazing mirror to, to life, or a representation of what we go through and how the mind reacts to it. So to your question, what I'm doing right now, I'm walking across America, about 2,800 miles. I started March 6th. I will end hopefully at some point in August. I'm not sure. We'll see. And I started in Southern California, Newport Beach. And I'm going to end in Virginia Beach. That's the plan right now. I'm walking part for personal challenge, in part for raising awareness and doing fundraising for men's mental health and suicide prevention. So on the fundraising part, my goal is to raise $50,000 to be able to donate to charity. One of the charities I've partnered with early on is Movember recently. And that's the goal with that. And actually also raised $15,000 through GoFundMe to help fund the trip, to help with food, lodging, any gear, that kind of cost. So that part has already been raised. And, for me, it's a topic that is really, it's near and dear to me. I'm out here because it's something that I have personally struggled with, from about 2016 to 2020. I went through, everything for me looked good on paper. It looked great on paper. Always got good grades in college, landed a good job, was doing really well. And I was in the tech industry. I was in sales. I was in sales leadership. I had the brand new car. I lived in San Francisco. I ended up moving to New York City to manage a sales office. Like, things were outstanding on paper. And at the same time, internally, there was a bit of a landslide going on, and things were really starting to slip. And it was the more I reached and the more I tried to grasp on to certain areas of my life, the more things just slipped. And so from that span, I found myself slipping deeper and deeper into a depression, becoming things like less motivated. I felt like I was now just a lazy person. I didn't really have purpose anymore. I felt my health start to slip. The only day of the week I would look forward to was Saturday, because it meant I got to go out with friends and we got to drink, for most of the day. And I found myself just looking for escapes, really. And until ultimately I got to a point, I ended up getting fired from my job for performance. I was just not the same high performer that I had been my whole life, through playing sports, through college. I played sports in college. Like I said, I led sales teams. And it just put me face to face with what was really going on. And what was really going on was there were some things that were not okay under the surface. One of the things that came up is I had gotten out of a long-term relationship with my college girlfriend, and we broke up a week before moving in together. And I didn't allow myself to grieve, to process it. I just kind of powered through it. And I didn't allow myself to feel those things, and the sadness from that part of my life ending, and just that relationship ending, for about 3 years. So it just built up with time. And, and anyway, I had heard this quote. Kind of my turning point was hearing a really simple quote, really simple idea. Now, it probably isn't going to be brand new for a lot of people listening, but it really hit me. And it was, everything in life is neutral. Every event, every circumstance, everything we go through, inherently, it's just neutral. And all of the meaning in our life comes from within, good or bad. And wow, that slapped me in the face. It was such an epiphany moment of epiphany. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's me. And it's how I'm viewing what I'm going through. It's the things I'm refusing to process or look at. It's the emotions I'm not letting myself feel. It's the stories I'm making up of who I think I need to be, and the things I'm doing to try and live up to that ideal. And when it hasn't worked out, when it hasn't happened, I then make up a story about maybe why I'm bad or I'm not worthy. So that was kind of the general theme. And so I realized, oh my gosh, I need to work on me. And so that's what set me off, or set me down this path of this inner work, this self-discovery, this, maybe this mental health path, this journey. And I started to look into how would I even change how I think? I was starting to read books on mindset, mindset, excuse me, performance, things like that. And then that led me into more of a connection with self, or calming the mind, things like meditation. I got into journaling, and that led me into learning about emotional intelligence, and really or building my emotional intelligence and gaining awareness around how it's really my emotions and feelings, and trying to get needs met, that are driving the actions that I'm taking unconsciously. And so I started exploring what are some of these needs and wants and desires that I have at a core level that are really driving me down this path. So that led me, down this deep discovery for about 4 or 5 years. I ended up getting out of tech sales. I ended up getting into I started writing about all this online, and I had this response from men because I was just sharing what I went through. I talked about the inner critic. I talked about, chasing money, kind of on this treadmill of chasing all of this external and material stuff, and how it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't satisfying. And actually, after a while, it was having more of a deleterious effect, I would say. And through that writing, I had a lot of response from men just messaging me, hey, that actually sounds a lot like what I'm going through. And so that led me to start a coaching business for men. I started doing things in cohorts and communities, doing in-person events. I started helping friends throw retreats for this kind of stuff and really immerse myself into this world. And then last year, as things were going well from a business perspective, I actually found myself in a deeper second wave of depression for about 3 or 4 months, and last year being 2024. So from June to August, September, I got into a really deep apathetic depression to where, all of the discipline and habits I had cultivated my whole life, from going to the gym, from eating well, to now doing cold exposure, meditation, writing, getting outside, going for walks, talking with people, all this stuff that I had worked with clients on and also, developed myself, completely went out the window. And I was so apathetic. I didn't give a shit about any of it. I couldn't get out of bed till 9 or 10 in the morning at times. Often I would be running a coaching call, midday. And right after the coaching call, the first thing I would reach for would be like a weed gummy, just so I could get some reprieve from this feeling of heaviness and darkness. And that was when I first started experiencing suicidal thoughts. And so I had those every day, and it was increasing with intensity, increasing with frequency last year. And it really showed me a different side of this journey and struggles and what people go through. And even in the darkest of moments, I remember having a shower thought, and I was just like, I was just bawling for a reason I couldn't understand. I couldn't pinpoint it, right? But I knew I just felt so heavy, so down, so terrible. And in that moment, I had this really interesting thought, and I realized, man, I can't wait to get to the other side of this, because it's going to help me so much be able to relate to others going through this journey. And so to just kind of wrap up that part of the story, I ended up I was seeking a lot of things to try and do. I thought about moving to Costa Rica for a month. I thought about going on a little bit of a pilgrimage. I thought about maybe going to India. I thought about doing a plant medicine ceremony. Like, everything was on the table, and nothing really clicked with me until a friend of mine was going to India. She told me about the trip. It really lit me up. I ended up going on the trip, had a few life-changing moments on the trip, which I'm happy to dive into, but this story's already going a little long. And when I got back, I was back for about 4 days, maybe a week or so. And I heard the idea, this guy was sharing on Instagram how he had walked across America, and how it changed his life. And I can't quite explain. I definitely don't know why it happened. But when I heard him say those words, walk across America, I felt like I had this lightning bolt go through my body, and immediately was like, that's it. That's the thing I'm going to do. Like, that is what I have felt when I talk about I was searching for something all year. I was like, it was so clear to me in that moment. I was like, this was the thing that was coming down the pipe. And I'm like, what an amazing way to use it, not only to spread awareness and to raise money for men's mental health, but to use it as a vehicle for learning, and to not listen to music, not listen to podcasts or anything, be present with every single step, and every single day just cultivate being more present, being more aware, being with all of the challenges, all of the negative thoughts, all of the everything that comes up, and use it, the 5-6 month journey, as the deepest most rich and intense curriculum that I've ever been through in my life. And so today is day 70 on this walk. And we're chatting.
We're recording this on May 14th, just so people listening know.
Yep. And I just crossed into Kansas yesterday. So I'm almost halfway. I'm probably 2 weeks away or so from being halfway. But that was a bit of a ramble, but that's kind of how I ended up here on foot in Elkhart, Kansas.
That's a judgmental thought. Just so you know, I don't want to just identify that for you. I'm not sitting here watching the clock. You're here to talk. So this is literally what you're here for. I asked a question and you answered. It was pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
But you're on this show with me because I think we share a lot of the internal stuff. The self-critical voice. I don't share any of the athleticism with you, but I do share some of the stuff that goes on up here. A lot of the incessant negativity, the self-doubt, the apathy that you were experiencing.
Yeah.
Of nothing matters, nothing I do matters, nothing anybody else does matters. It's all shit. It's all a facade. It's all a show. I'm bad. I mean, that resonates hard with me. So I get it, for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people listening do as well. So you weren't rambling, but you did say a lot. And so I'm trying to make connections to things you were saying, because I guess that's what a good host is supposed to do. And if I were a really good host, I would have written some things down while you were talking, but I wanted to just listen like you want to just walk and not listen to music or be distracted. One of the things that you said earlier in your answer was the thought of this too. And it reminded me of something that a suicide loss survivor, a woman who lost her son, I was on a panel with her, and she said, you know how people say, this too shall pass? Talking about a trial or a time of struggle or an awful period in one's life. She said, it applies to everything. It also applies to good things too.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. This time of feeling good and feeling like I've got it together and that everyone's healthy in my world and everything's basically okay and I have a job and a stable income. Well, this too shall pass. And I thought, your statement about this too, it's another beautiful reminder of that ebb and flow of existence. And I'm sure you've experienced this so often on your walk that you can be feeling good in one moment and then there's a fucking pebble in the shoe. Or I know you had an issue with your leg. Things are happening. Things are always happening. Or even just your mind, you'll be feeling placid but your mind will go somewhere negative or stressed or anxious, and it's all transient. It's all ephemeral. It's all just coming and a going. I don't know if you want to comment on that or if that resonates with you.
Yeah, I think, one of the first examples that came up during the walk was, I woke up, I was walking through, I think the eastern part of the Navajo Nation reservation, Northeast Arizona. And I just woke up, I didn't sleep well the night before. And I just woke up irritated, like I was just irritated. Everything, putting on my sock and it doesn't go on exactly how I want. And I'm motherfucking my sock, like the most silly stuff, but we all do it in our own way. And so I woke up irritated. And I probably had 20, that was a stretch I was doing 26 miles every day for 7 days. And, you know, it was a little windy that morning. I remember taking breaks that day and just being pelted by sand when I would sit down. And I just remember feeling like, you know, this isn't how it's supposed to go. That was a real thought. This, like, almost like this is a mistake. Today, it's not supposed to go this way. You know, and obviously saying it out loud to you is, you know, we can say, well, that doesn't make sense. That's not how life goes. But that is how the mind works often. It creates these very slippery, slimy, subtle stories that we just believe because they're just our thoughts. We feel like it's true. And I believed it for about 4 hours to start the day. And I was not happy with the walk. I'm like, oh, man, I'm out here, I'm doing this walk. I'm supposed to be, you know, again, just the story. I'm supposed to be just one with everything and Zen and, you know, talking mental health. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty irritated today for no reason. You know, I'm mad at the wind. My hat's flipping up every once in a while, and I'm just getting mad at stuff. And that's when it hit me. You know, I thought, man, like, can't you see this is also part of it? Like, this is just as part of it as the good breakfast you had the other day, or the stranger who stopped and gave you a banana and a cranberry juice. And this is also part of it. You, like, the opportunity is to be present with this as well as the other stuff. You know, when I'm walking, there are a few days where I feel good. Like, my feet aren't sore. My legs feel fine. You know, I'm not tired. I've got enough sleep. But most of the time, it's, you know, it's just a constant level of pain and discomfort physically. And being able to, you know, rest in the awareness and not in the thoughts and not in the discomfort. This walk is a practice of, can I rest in the space of pure loving awareness? And rest in the space where I'm just noticing this stuff. Yeah, there's pain. Okay. And I'm here and I'm noticing it, you know, and not getting wrapped up into it. And so when I think of this too, it's, you know, I got a flat tire the other day, the first time. And I mean, I was 0.3 miles into my walk and I looked down and because I heard something, and I had never changed a flat tire in my life. I had all the stuff to do it. And I was like, man, today was supposed to be a short walk, get there early. Now this just, like, is going to ruin the day.
Just to inform people, this is on your support vehicle.
Yeah, I have a stroller that I push that carries my gear. Sometimes I have a support vehicle,
Okay.
but I have a running stroller that has my backpack, water, all that stuff. It's about 100 pounds fully loaded. And, you know, and I have sealant in the tube, so when I get little thorns and stuff, it's fine. But this was a thorn that was stuck in the tire, and I only found it when I took it off, and I used pliers to get it out. But, you know, it was another one where I was like, wait a minute, this isn't a mistake, you know. And the walk has been such a representation of life, of course. And in those moments, what I realize is, you know, a lot of people create this idea out of nothing that they should be somewhere. They should have this type of financial wealth. They should have. I was talking with a client the other day, and he mentioned how he struggles because he's noticing these stories he has about what he should be doing, how much money he should be making, where he should be living, how he should have 3 passive income revenue streams, and, you know, and the fact that he's not means he's less than. And so it just shows we create these stories about these expectations about how we think life should be, and we become resistant to how life really is. And it takes us out of the present to just be with it, to be with this too.
But the stories don't come from nowhere. So they come from that phrase, comparison is the thief of joy. And we
Yeah.
see what other people have and we
Yeah.
go, well, I'm X years old and they're X years old and I'm
Yeah.
like them in these ways. So therefore I should be doing what they're doing
Yeah.
and doing it how they're doing it and their image crafting. And I see that and they look like they have it all. They look like you. And
Yeah.
remember, good on paper.
Yeah.
Tim has this. Therefore, he must be feeling
Sure.
fucking great. And I
Basically.
feel like shit. Therefore, do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we do make up these stories and we make up these stories about other people based on what
Yeah.
we see on social media or what other people are presenting or what they're telling us when they get together with us for an hour social event and then they go and they're miserable or
Yeah.
they're terror struck that they can't keep up with the lifestyle that they've created. And it's creating immense stress and pressure and possibly making them a suicide risk, right? Because
Yeah.
we know that trying to keep up a certain lifestyle can be very fatal.
Yeah.
Um, so it's, yes, all those stories are made up internally, but it's a lot of it is how we see ourselves, but juxtaposed against how we see other people and
Yeah.
stories that we make up about them,
Yeah.
which is it's so unhealthy and so dangerous.
Yeah. It's part of the brain, or I'd refer to it as the survival mind, really. Um, there's a survival mechanism within us. And, for years and thousands of years, it worked in a very primal type of physical survival way. And as we evolve, as our consciousness expands individually and collectively, has kind of turned and shaped into psychological survival. And so how the mind is wired is to constantly look for ways to survive. And it just does so in the best way it can. And one of the methods it does it is just as the perfect example as you described, which is so common, which is just comparing to others. And we see somebody else because it's so arbitrary, right? We see somebody else. Your story could be totally different depending on what country you live in. The socioeconomic status of just the town you live in, the story could be totally different. For somebody, it could be, man, I see everybody around me in this town with a brand new truck and I don't have one. I'm a piece of shit. And then others, depends on the circle you're in, go, man, I see everybody around me with 3 businesses. This guy's got a private jet. This guy has a jet, a yacht, a helicopter. And I'm only over here making $1.5 million. I'm a piece of shit.
Right.
And so stripping that down to its fundamental, to its core, is recognizing what the brain wants to do, what the survival mind wants to do, is believe that external circumstance dictates our internal well-being. And it doesn't. It's how we view things, how we perceive things, our perspective on whatever we're going through, our perspective on life. And so one of the major shifts has been the just experimenting with and being curious to the idea that I am not this body, right? I have grown, I have gotten older, I've gotten stronger, I've gotten weaker, I've had surgery, I've had all these things happen to my body, yet there is still a constant within me. Ever since I was a kid, my earliest memories at like 3 years old, my 3-year-old birthday party, I think was my first memory. There's still an awareness that has been constant throughout it all. Even going through this mental health shift, as my personality changes, as my demeanor may change, there's still a constant behind it all that I recognize, that I associate myself with. So I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I am the awareness that's behind it all. And this idea that I've really experimented with, in that, again, I don't know if it's true. I don't think I'll have the ability to know if it's true, but it's something that has felt right to me, is that, I'm just a soul, right? Behind it all, I feel like underneath it all, I am a timeless, boundless being that is a soul, or whatever term you want to use, spirit. And the idea is that I have come here to learn certain lessons. And I have come here with a certain set of circumstances, a certain maybe propensity of direction where my mind likes to go, a certain set of internal dialogues or narratives or beliefs or themes that are recurring throughout my life, a certain set of wounding, psychological wounding, physical wounding is certainly as well. And perhaps my mission in life and my whole purpose is to work through those. And each one of those is just a different textbook. You know, it's just a part of my curriculum as a being to grow and evolve and learn deep, powerful lessons in this lifetime. And I have no way of proving that. But when I really sit with that, you know, and I quiet my mind and I just be present with that idea, there's a part of me that really resonates with it. And as hard as it is, what that does is it shifts my perspective to what I'm going through to just think this isn't a mistake. This isn't wrong. You know, I'm not bad for going through this. This is just part of it. And that is where that phrase, this too, I think really, it's like a subtle reminder. It's like the guardrails on the bowling alley. It's nudging me back. Oh yeah, that's right. Look, I'm here to learn. And I know that when I'm faced with a challenge, and if my intent going into it is, what can I learn about myself? How can I improve? How can I change how I relate to this challenge? When I can do that is when I experience the biggest growth. When I experience the biggest shifts within me, when I have perspective, when I feel calm come over me. And so that's a perspective that, you know, I've tried on just in the last few years. That is something that has really, really helped. And it shapes, you know, it's kind of that idea that is probably more common that people have heard of. That is, you know, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. You know, and it's the same idea that, hey, what we're going through, you know, isn't a punishment. It's here to teach us. And we will keep experiencing the same lessons until we can learn and grow through them. And I think that's really what this walk does, is it provides a vehicle for me to dive way deeper than I've ever gone before into these lessons and the subtleties and the sub-lessons that orbit them.
And so I guess my question to you is, you know, you had this idea about a week or so after coming back from India, and what you were going to do and what you thought this was going to do for you and be. And I think it's important to say do for you,
Yeah.
because it is a lot about what this is doing for Tim. It's also helping other people, but I think that I don't know if it's 50-50 or whatever, but I think a lot of this has to do with you.
Yeah.
And so my question is it doing for you what you thought it would or what you hoped it would? I mean, I guess that's that's the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. You know, when I mentioned that I had that period when I was fired and I had the epiphany in 2020, I just became a full-time student. I mean, actually, like a full-time student. I read hundreds of books. I was listening to podcasts. I was journaling. I was meditating. Like, I was doing that and then trying to launch this clothing business as well, which is a different story. And so I read tons of different types of books, self-development, self-help, self-therapy, like all that, books on consciousness, Eastern spirituality, Western psychology, everything. And I learned so much. And what this trip, it's not so much that I felt like I have been introduced to brand new ideas or massive revelations. There have been a couple of those. But I think what it's done more is it's taken these ideas and the stuff that I have read that has been very conceptual and been very knowledge-based up here. And it's given me an avenue to start to let those trickle down and go into what I would say is like my full body, to embody them, to integrate those ideas, to really get it. I describe it to someone, and I'm like, it's like if you've never had a pineapple before, it's like reading the most in-depth description of a pineapple, looking at all the pictures, hearing how people describe it, learning about the juiciness, the flavor, the texture, the color, all that. And you know everything, you know how to grow it, you know everything you could possibly know about pineapples. And then it's like tasting it. And so now you go, oh, now I get it.
Right.
All of this stuff I've known, and now it's like, no, now I fucking get it. Like I see why, you know, they were describing it this way. And so that's what I feel it has done for me. And so when I've been sharing things online, and not that they're new ideas to me, but they're almost like new realized truths. And so because they feel more like truths than ideas, I feel much more comfortable sharing them. And you know, in terms of this, I don't know what the split is 50-50, but I feel like what has kind of evolved in this trip is giving people a glimpse into just my process, this growth process, this how I am trying to approach this walk, the curriculum that has surfaced for me, how I have gone through the process of being stuck in these thought loops, to being aware of them, to then shifting into, okay, we need a shift, to then seeing what is this trying to teach me, and then moving forward. And it happens in so many different ways, big, small, etc. And it feels like in doing so, that has allowed people to relate a lot more, because just as you described the thoughts that go on, like hearing you share yours, I'm like, oh, I totally know those, you know, the self-critical nature, the self-doubt, what is this all for? Hearing you share that, I was like, oh, like you know, I just feel that in my bones so much. And sometimes hearing somebody articulate their own experience not only validates what we're going through, but can actually deepen our understanding of what we're going through, can lessen the burden. Because I go, oh, I'm not the only one that does that. I'm not happy that you also experience that. But there's a part of me that does feel a sense of relief. It's just turning the release valve.
It's kinship, really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is not to bring Recovery Diaries into this, because I don't need to promote our organization on our own fucking show, but
You
like,
can.
it is the whole reason why we exist.
Yeah.
So we're a mental health storytelling platform to share human experiences from all over the world, so that somebody living in Rwanda or Australia or Ireland or Kansas can
Yeah.
read an essay by someone in some corner of the world and go, shit, they're saying the same fucking thing. They're giving voice to what's happening up here in me. I have
Yeah.
never met this person. I will never meet this person, but I'm connected now, and I don't feel so alone. And I, a quick story that I share a lot because it stayed with me. When I was working in a psych hospital, I was running a group, and this young woman um, raised her hand to ask if she could share something. And she said, you know, I thought I was the only one who felt the way I feel and was going through what I
Yeah.
go through in my life. And I had to be dragged out of my apartment at 3 o'clock in the morning by the police and brought here against my will to finally understand that I'm not alone. And that's a really drastic way
Yeah.
to have someone realize that. And I want people to realize that in ways that are not coercive, and that are least restrictive, and that are not traumatizing.
Yeah.
And if it's through bringing you here to talk, if it's through publishing an essay by someone living with major depressive disorder in England or whatever, that's what I want to do, because I think it's human stories. It's I get very, I feel icky when someone will say about anything that anyone is doing in the mental health sphere or the suicide prevention or awareness raising field, you are saving lives.
Hmm.
Um, Back when I had a 1963 VW Beetle with the crisis line all over the rear window, and I was driving it every day to spread awareness, and I did that for 6 years. People would say to me, that little car is saving lives. And it, I would get that like
Hmm.
feeling because it's not. Um, it's spreading awareness. Okay. It's putting a message in front of people. Um, it's certainly more helpful than harmful. But in the end, if someone sees that little car and picks up the phone and calls 988 3 months from then, or has a conversation, or they learn something about suicide prevention, about busting a myth that, like, okay, asking someone if they're suicidal doesn't put the thought into their mind. Like it's actually it's not a risk. It's an act of love, right? And it can open a conversation that wouldn't have been open before, right? So if someone does that because of something that they saw or something that they read or something that they heard, it's that person who's acting on that's saving a life. Um, and so I don't want to overstate the importance of like the suicide awareness work that I've done, or the mental health awareness raising that Recovery Diaries does, or the work that you're doing. It's all of value and it's all wonderful. But I think it's really important to keep it in perspective and in context that it's other human beings who experience what you're doing, who then go off and like do the work of changing other people's lives or changing their own
Yeah.
lives.
You know, I think I might have a slightly different perspective on it because
I want to hear it.
I think there's so much that goes into it. Just like depression isn't because of one thing, right? It's
Of
so
course, and
so
suicide is
complex.
never just one thing.
Yeah. You know, it's there's so many factors. And I feel the same way with recovery or with saving lives. Is it's not just about the person who picks up the hotline and helps that person through it. Because what happened upstream from that? You know, there could have been 500 other touch points that got that person to even be okay with picking up the call, picking up the phone in the first place. You know, like I think what's important with, like, we'll use your example of driving around with the hotline on the Beetle, is what it does in its subtlest form is it's saying that I get it, that I see you, that if you're struggling, I get it. And it's important enough to
Right.
me to drive around with this freaking car. Okay. And here is a number. Okay. And that could be a touch point that is just enough to where somebody sees it and goes, man, this guy's like, he's really driving around with this thing. Like, he must get it. On some level, it may
And he
resonate
must
with
be
him.
crazy.
And he must be crazy and okay.
And
And I
true.
feel like
Check
I'm
and check.
crazy, you know, and so there's another crazy guy who's
Well, no,
talking
but
about
that's what
this.
I was
Yeah.
thinking when I heard about you, because I was like, okay, so I did this for 6 years and it was my daily car and we broke down all the fucking time. And I mean, and I am not a mechanical person and I couldn't afford to keep the car. I was in every possible way, I was the wrong person to be doing this. And I have a very low frustration tolerance. And so when things would go bad, like they went bad with me also. And then I was like, well, I'll make a movie and I'll mount GoPros to the car and I won't have any help. I'll just do it all myself and
Yeah.
I will drive. The original plan was to do what you're doing, to drive from PA to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Mm.
And then I had to scale that back. And then it was like, well, I'll go from PA to Bar Harbor, Maine, and broke down in Vermont. And I mean, it was awful. And I hated it. I was gone for 11 days, and it was just one frustration after another.
Mm.
And I was pretending for the camera that I was enjoying it and that I was fully dialed in to the people who I met along the way. And I met friends who either had lost people to suicide or had considered suicide themselves or attempted. And I also recorded interactions with strangers, right? But it was so frustrating and so upset. I couldn't wait for it to be over.
Mm.
And I sold the car in 2023. You know, that part of my mission is over. I'm still doing the work, but without the shiny object.
Oh.
And it's different. You know, I've lost a lot of my following. I've lost a lot of my, because people, they're just not interested anymore now that Herbie's gone, right? It's just Gabe. And I learned a lot about myself and about how I'm perceived, or what I think about how I'm perceived, or how I think I'm perceived. And I think you're learning a lot also through your journey. I think you're much better suited for what you're doing than I was, in terms of your mindset and where you are in terms of acceptance and how you look at the whole of life and the things that happen around you, not to you. I think I was very much in the mindset of, why is it happening to me?
Yeah.
Why is this V belt breaking again? Like, why, you know, but, and I would hear my mother's voice in my head, well, I'll make choices, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah. But I guess, see, now I'm rambling. I did that just to help you out.
It's your
So the
podcast,
scales would be,
so
the
you're
rambling
allowed
scales
to.
would be balanced. But I don't know. I don't even know if there's a question in there, Tim. I guess I wanted to share that I resonate with what is hard about this for you. And as two people who've done similar things in very, very different ways, in very different spaces in time, I just knew that I wanted to connect with you because my road trip thing was in 2018, and I'm so different now than who I was then. And I'm grateful for the experience.
Yeah.
You know, in my mind, I failed to do what I wanted to do. And I guess if there is a question, I want to know from you, what happens if you don't make it to Virginia Beach?
Yeah.
Is it Virginia Beach?
Virginia Beach, yeah.
Yeah. Are you prepared for that? Do you feel pressure? Pressure that you've put on yourself, or pressure from your followers? And because I do want to say one thing, and then I promise I'll shut up. So your hat says keep going.
Yeah.
And when I owned Herbie, and I would post about suicide prevention, and I would post statistics, or I would post facts, or I would post things about firearms, or about the LGBTQIA plus community, or about Native Americans and suicide, or alcohol and suicide. And I would go here, and I would do this mental health conference, and do this appearance, and blah, blah, blah. People would comment very well-meaningly, what you're doing is so, oh my God, just keep going. And that began to feel like a brick on my chest.
Yeah.
That I was being told, keep going, keep doing it. And I could see the money depleting from my checking account I'm on a first name basis with my fucking VW mechanic. And like, I mean, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
But I was feeling that pressure internally and externally. And I wonder if you have any of that, or if you have built a safety net around feeling that or being
Yeah.
motivated by that.
That's one thing that has really hit me so much, especially as I, continue on this journey of helping men with mental health and obviously this walk, but the greater journey of my life is, whether I'm growing a business or writing content online is, am I doing something because I have been consistently doing it? Or am I doing something because it is what feels absolutely true to me in the moment? And so while if I think about the potential of not finishing this walk, I'm not saying that it would be easy to accept, but I think that the deeper commitment for me is just to truth, is not to, only get to Virginia Beach just for the sake of getting there. It is for, if that presents itself, then it is just the next challenge for me to work through and the next curriculum for me to learn. And the lesson in that could easily be acceptance in what feels, just what the moment is. And maybe something happens where it's just not possible, where I can't do it. And what I have to honor in that moment is just what feels true to me. And so I think that is, that's just been such a core tenet that I try and live by for the last couple of years, right? Since I heard that. And also, it's worth saying, I don't feel like there's a possibility I don't make it to Virginia Beach. That's just what I feel. Even since I started, there hasn't been a shred of doubt in my mind that I wouldn't make it. I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know if that means I gotta split it up or if something happens and I have to postpone it. But yeah, just on a personal level, that's just what I feel with it. But it would just be another challenge.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, here's to Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
I share most of the story on LinkedIn and most of the journey on LinkedIn. And I'm doing my best to share on other social media platforms as well, like Instagram, Threads, doing a little bit more on TikTok. But for the most part, LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm very, very grateful to you for what you're doing, for who you are, and for spending some time with me today. Thank you.
Yeah, Gabe, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we were able to make it work. I know it's tough to schedule these things on the road, and often, it was very last minute. So thank you for being flexible and happy we can make it work.
My pleasure. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you see the keep going on Tim's hat and on my mug. Don't be a salty bitch. So keep those two
good.
messages in mind in tandem as you go about your day today. And thank you. I'm really glad to have spent some time with you.
Yeah, and a shameless plug too. I did start making these hats, so if anybody wants a hat, or I made them available. We've sold over 215 already, I think, which is crazy. But if you resonate with Keep Going and you like hats, yeah, we have them available.
Awesome. Thank you. Hats off to you.
Yeah, thanks, Keith.